Should be live. It's live. There we go. Hello, everyone. This is Abdullah Sameer, and I have a special guest with me today. Abdullah and Abdul Hanan is here. Both of us are here in Canada, and we're excited to talk to you about both of our journeys. And interesting thing is, Abdul Hanan, I ran into him on Facebook not too long ago, and I was surprised by just how similar our stories are. It's quite interesting, and I think there's many other people just like us, waiting to come out. So it's pretty rare when people do come out. So I'm quite happy that he came out publicly and he's willing to talk to us about his journey, despite the consequences that coming out entails. Sometimes family members get mad. Sometimes maybe even your spouse and other people in your life may not be so happy about it, and they may also have to deal with the fallout. For the most part, I haven't had too much of an issue, and I'm thankful because my family is very liberal, so I didn't have as much of an issue. But we're going to talk to Abdul Hanan. Abdul Hanan is actually from Pakistan. So Abdul Hanan, how's it going?
I'm really great, doing really awesome. How about you?
Good. Happy to have you here. So let's get to it. Let's talk about some of your background. So you said you're from Pakistan?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Pakistan. Around 15 years of age, I became really practicing. 5 times going to the mosque. Actually, I was so involved. Like, I was giving the azan at the local masjid. I was leading prayer at the local masjid. That too in Pakistan, living in.
Right. So is your family very religious?
I'd say significantly, yeah. They still watch movies, listen to music and stuff. But when it comes to religion, they are really strict as well. Like, they will ask you to pray 5 times a day. My mom still does. My dad goes to Umrah literally all the time.
And Umrah is a journey to Makkah, which is the supposed birthplace of Islam, right?
Definitely, yeah. So, but other than that, my parents, they didn't really force religion onto us. Like, they were liberal in the sense that they won't beat you up for not praying. They will admonish you a little bit.
Nice. And so you grew up in, like a kind of religious family in Pakistan. You were quite religious. How meaningful was Islam to you in your life? You said like you were giving the adhan. We know that Prophet Muhammad said, what did he say about giving the adhan? You get the reward of everyone that comes. I don't recall the hadith, but tell me, how was Islam meaningful for you in your life in Pakistan? And what was it like being a Muslim in Pakistan compared to, say, like a non-Muslim?
Well, Islam to me was literally my whole life. At one point, like, I was just, everything revolved around Islam. My priority was religion. My studies and everything came secondary. I identified myself as a Muslim first, Pakistani later. It gave me this strength. And one thing I noticed, like, the culture in Pakistan, the society there actually said it's good to practice more and more. Like, they push it. So even as a child, as a young teenager, I always had a lot of confidence because people always were like, "Oh, you're so good, mashallah, subhanallah, this kid is on the right path." And they'll tell my parents that, and my parents were really happy, and they would make me as an example for my brothers. Like, look at him, he's going to the mosque 5 times a day, he's reading the Quran, he's getting people salah. Then a point came where religion just took over my whole life. I got, I'd say, really Salafi extreme mentality. Like, no music. If I heard music, I'd literally drive fingers in my ears.
So just to jump in there, was this in Pakistan while you was? So when did you come to Canada?
I came to Canada at the end of 2013 in December.
Okay. Oh, there you go. It sounds much better now. 2013 December you came. Okay, so you grew up most of your life in Pakistan. You've been here like about 4 years or so.
Yeah, just 4 years.
Okay, so you became Salafi in Pakistan, but your family's not Salafi.
Yeah, they're just Sunni Muslims, but yeah, I was well, in technical terms, I was Deobandi first, and then I levitated towards Salafism. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So your family is okay with music and movies and all that? They were cool with that?
Yeah, like they were cool with that, but they'd still identified it's still a sin. Like they wouldn't say it's a good thing.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So then, so how did you end up becoming more hardline, let's say?
I don't know. It's just like the one thing that played a lot was fear of the afterlife, fear of
Right.
death. Then when I started learning like a little bit of Arabic to understand the Quran when it was being recited, and the tortious descriptions in there, I mean, I was just a child, like about 15, 16, hearing like God's gonna pour like molten lead on your head and all that. So that scared me a lot. And I mean, obviously, I was told by all my relatives and all my families and friends that this is the absolute truth. This is gonna happen. So that fear part played a lot. Uh, then how I came to think that Islam is the absolute truth. There was a bunch of things that started with like listening to Dr. Zakir Naik and a few other people, Dr. Israr Ahmed, giving like proofs of why Islam is right, scientific miracles in the Quran and all that stuff. So social pressure, families pressure, and then all that put together, I just levitated towards a really extreme form of Islam, really, really strict.
Right, right. So as you were growing up, Islam was a big part of your life. You, as a kid, you were surrounded by Islam. But did you ever have any doubts as a kid? It doesn't sound like you did. It sounds like you just took it for granted that this is what my family taught me, this is the truth, and then you wanted, to protect yourself. As a child, all of us, even as an adult, we have this instinct for survival.
Mhm.
And the fear of hell is something that is used against us. So this fear of hell, for you and for me both, it got you more into believing Islam. Reading the Quran actually made you, a stronger believer. Correct? Like, so
Mhm.
far so good.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Right. And then you said you became Deobandi. So was it the local masajid over there that kind of influenced the path that you took?
Yeah. When I started off, it was more of like a Barelvi thing, but then slowly, slowly, when I learned more about Islam, the concept of hadith, the sayings of Muhammad, how important they are, I started levitating slowly towards Deobandis because they took everything kind of more literally.
And Deobandis are like kind of like Salafis, is it? I don't know too much about them.
Yeah, it's like pseudo Salafi. They're kind of stuck between Barelvis and uh, Salafis.
I
So
don't.
it's like the middle ground.
Brahmavis are what?
Sorry?
And Brahmlis are what are they?
They basically follow Mufti Ahmad Raza Khan. He was a big scholar in India from this area called Barelvi Sharif, I believe. And so hence their followers evolved into a totally different sect. One of their famous examples, you can see the people that wear the green turbans around their head.
Right.
Those people follow Barelviism. They go into a lot of grave worship, and that kind of repelled me as well. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I'm seeing similarities here because, see, when I converted to Islam, okay, when I converted to Sunni Islam, I always have to catch myself because I was a Ismaili.
Mhm.
I also wasn't sure which path to take. Should I end up as Salafi or should I end up as not Salafi? Should I follow a madhab?
Mhm.
It was all like confusion to me. And as I started to learn about Islam and I started to read the Quran and Sunnah, I saw that and I felt that, you know, going by the Quran and Hadith literally, or let's say, not necessarily literally, because there's many things in the Hadith you don't take literally, but just the straightforward interpretation of them.
Yeah.
That made sense to me. That made sense to me. This is what Muhammad taught. This is how his companions understood it. This is the right way to follow Islam. As well, I was coming from a religion that committed shirk, the most unforgiving sin in the world. So there's a tendency when you're coming from shirk to not to want to go back to shirk, right? Now shirk is considered, and only because shirk is considered the unforgivable, only unforgivable sin in the Quran. So I'm like, well, I don't want to end up doing that. So I ended up, moving towards Salafism. And as I heard Bilal Phillips, Zakir Naik a little bit less so, but let's say Bilal Phillips, Abdurrahim Green, some of these guys talking about Islam, Abdullah Hakim Quick, and they talked about the whole madhab thing and how people say you have to follow madhab, and how there's actually more than 4 madhabs, but only 4 survived. So why do we give this like special status to those 4, right? And they were saying how you don't need to follow. So for me, I ended up as a Salafi, but I wasn't Salafi the whole time. In the beginning, I was just like a general Muslim, and I don't believe that it was Salafism that actually caused me to leave Islam. Let's talk about that a little tiny bit, because many people say to me, "Well, it's because you're Salafi, that's why you left Islam." Like the issues that cause you to leave Islam, or even before we get to that, I just want to talk a little bit more about life in Pakistan. So you grew up, you became more religious. How your family were they okay with you being more religious? That's socially acceptable over there. What sacrifices and choices did you make in your life in Pakistan that were based on Islam? Like, did you avoid working for the bank, anything like what? How did it affect your life being a Muslim?
Yeah. I'll just go into a few incidents just to give you an idea how brainwashed or indoctrinated I was at one point. I would not go out with my family to restaurants because there was background music being played at the restaurants.
Right.
If I did have no choice, I will go to the restaurant and I would put earphones in and listen to the Quran. I wouldn't go to weddings because there was a lot of music. I wouldn't even go to like school functions, like a farewell graduation party. I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't go to a bonfire party. Nothing, just because of religion.
And over there's no alcohol, right? It's not even like this drinking, right? I mean, at weddings and at like these parties, it's just music, right?
Yeah, it's just music, yeah, and dancing,
right? And mixing women and men, right?
Yeah. I mean, that also to a really small extent. Like, a lot of people in Pakistan still have segregated weddings, like men and women sit separately.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
I'll mention this one really shocking incident, which I always tell people. So I was really really what people say nerd in school, and what ended up happening was I got interviewed and became the head of the student council, like a head prefect or a head proctor or a head monitor of the whole school.
Right.
So the funny thing was that there was an oath-taking ceremony on stage in front of the whole school. There was about like 400 kids in front of me, and I was standing on stage, and the principal was a female, right? Now, interestingly, she's an aged lady. She's the age of my own mom. Her son was my classmate. Now, when I was on the stage, I noticed that she's giving out the badge and the sash, and she has to shake your hand and take your picture. So this hadith came in my mind that if you touch a woman who is not lawful for you, it is better to drive a nail through your head. Yeah. And I kid you not, I went up, I was the head prefect, okay? She extended her hand, and I said in front of 400 kids, no, sorry, I don't shake hands with women.
Oh.
This was the extent how serious I was taking religion.
How did people react how did you feel? Were you scared to do it? Were you confident?
Actually, I was confident. I was happy. I thought I'm doing an amazing thing. And funny enough, the reaction was really really weird. A couple of my teachers who were religious as well called me after the ceremony, shook my hand, and congratulated me for standing up for the religion of Allah. One of the teacher's brother was a mufti. He had his brother, who I have no idea who he is, call me and congratulate me for doing this.
Okay. So you were definitely living your life according to Islam. And why were you doing that? Like, okay, well, actually, you did say you didn't want to commit any haram. You wanted to be on Allah's good side. Is that right?
Yeah. I was legitimately scared of the punishments. Like, I would get up in the middle of the night. I would cry. I once passed out of fear of the hellfire when I was
Wow.
reciting certain verses from the Quran. And this was me at like the age of 17 or 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing, amazing story. So then eventually, you left Islam. Was that in Canada or not yet? So then you came to Canada?
Yeah.
What happened?
So, well, my story was I came to Canada in 2013. I was still very practicing, and I'll tell you, like, I never used to wear jeans or t-shirts. I only used to dress in like the shalwar kameez or those thobes. And I was really like trying to live like the most simplistic life, closer to the prophets. And when I did come to Canada, it was after 3 years, the first time I bought a pair of jeans
Wow.
was a few days before I came to Canada. And when I did come to Canada, right, I rolled up the jeans as well to keep them above the ankle because Muhammad said that any garment that is below the ankle is in the fire. And
Yeah.
all of my dresses were stitched like that as well. So I was really trying to implement it 100% in my life. Like I had a huge beard that came out of the other side of my fist. Uh, I wish I could show you guys my IDs and stuff, the pictures. It's just I don't want to show them right now. It's personal safety.
So so both of us were very, very religious. We both
Hmm.
and you now when you came to Canada, then what happened? Like, let's continue your story. So you got married as well. You got married first, right, as a Muslim? You got
Yeah.
married to a white lady.
Hmm.
Interesting, and a Muslim convert, just like my wife.
Hmm. That's the shocking similarity.
Yeah, so both of us got married to Muslim converts. And
Hmm.
then, so what happened after that? Like, how did you end up leaving Islam?
Well, the way I left Islam was I'll have to backtrack a little bit just to show you how involved I was in the community in Winnipeg and what ended up actually happening.
Mhm.
Uh, After I came to Winnipeg, I got more involved in the community. I was at the local MSA and I was giving khutbas, azans, and leading prayer for about 2 years. Then what ended up happening was I was living close to the university. I finished my education and I moved away from it, and I started working. Started talking to a lot of people at work, and some of them were atheists, some of them were Christians. So they started asking a bunch of questions. Uh, and that had already been 2 years of me being in Canada. So my perspective of the world had changed. I had realized that, hey, listen, man, like treating women with respect is essential. Women are as intelligent as men. You know, there's human rights. We shouldn't be chopping people's hands off and all that. And then when people started asking me questions about Islam, I started doing research in an attempt to answer them. The more and more and more research I did, I was like, wow, I didn't know this was in Islam. And that kind of, with the new perspective, the new world, the way you view the world, it just took me away from Islam slowly and slowly and slowly. And then I remember I was watching this documentary with my wife called Amongst the Believers about an incident in Pakistan. And I looked at it and I think that's exactly the society Muhammad wants to create, where women are all veiled up and, they don't look at each other. It's a patriarchal society. So I said to my wife, Islam looks like a cult.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was shocking for her, and then she came to tell me that, hey, I can't be married to you because you're not Muslim. If you say that, you do realize the seriousness of what you said. So I kind of got scared. I stopped talking about Islam. But then I came across
So wait, when was this?
this was happening from 2016 September onwards, and I
Okay,
apostated in May 2017.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So I started reading some critics of Islam, and then I came across this book called People versus Muhammad.
Mhm.
Uh, the book was shocking. It was a revelation, an eye opener for me. Like this is the first time I ever read a book written against Islam, like my first time. And I wouldn't say everything in the book is true, but 80 to 90% of the allegations that it leveled against Muhammad, I was checking the references and I was shocked to see all of that. And one thing I like to mention here as well is people in Muslim countries are very shielded from criticism of Islam, and that is
I was
one way. Yeah, that is one way to keep people indoctrinated, is to ban all movies, ban all videos, ban all forms of media that is against Islam.
websites.
Exactly. And it's so bad in Pakistan that there's a few websites that are like the Religion of Peace and some other websites that you couldn't even access from Pakistan.
Right,
And this
right.
one incident I will show you was, I think it was in '08 or '09 when this guy made a movie about Muhammad on YouTube, I believe, from Denmark, was it?
Okay, okay, yeah.
That's that sparked mega outrage in the Muslim world, and Pakistan banned all of YouTube across the whole country, and it was
Wow.
only unbanned in 2014. So for about like 4 or 5 years, there was no YouTube in Pakistan just because one guy made a movie about Muhammad.
Oh wow, interesting. Someone's asking, would you ever go back to your country? Can you ever go back to your country?
I cannot go back to my country. It's impossible. I'll just put it out there
I mean,
that
yep.
uh,
Go ahead.
amongst many Muslim countries, like Pakistan's criminal code, especially 295C, talks about the death penalty for blasphemers, and their standard of blasphemy is just somebody saying that, hey, I'm not a Muslim, I don't like what Muhammad did here, or even questioning a Quranic verse with the mentality to ask a question. It's also seen by some people as a form of blasphemy, and I honestly cannot go back to Pakistan at all. If you could recall, there was a atheist student recently in Peshawar called Mashal Khan. He was a journalism student, was an atheist, and journalism it thrives on the basis of freedom of speech. And he was just discussing some ideas with his fellow students, and they started saying that he's a blasphemer. Lo and behold, a few days later, a whole mob came, lynched him to death on the university campus. And even after he was dead, they dragged his dead body outside, just beating it up and asking people to continue to beat him up, like maybe have at least one punch or one kick on him, so that God will forgive their sins and it's a good deed.
Is your mom and your parents in Canada?
No, they're still in Pakistan.
Oh wow. So does that mean you can't see them anymore?
I guess so. I mean, that's sometimes that's the price you have to pay. I would love to. I mean, but it's sad.
Yeah, that is definitely quite sad. But knowing what I know and what you know, I would absolutely agree with you that it's not worth the risk to go back.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many like uneducated, crazy people in the world, and the chances are someone may decide, if they found out, like some idiot would decide to do something crazy. Even in Canada, like I don't tend to advertise where in Canada I am because you never know, some crazy person out there. For the most part,
Yeah.
I feel safe. I don't feel too concerned here, and that's why I'm public. Someone's asking, did your parents disown you, or how did they react?
Yeah. So my parents did initially disown me.
Even like tell them, how did you tell? Let's talk about how did you tell them?
So the way I came out was I was questioning Islam. And I was asking a lot of scholars for answers, and nobody was giving me a satisfactory answer. So I posted like about 4 questions on my Facebook that were, I believe, is why did Muhammad marry Aisha at the age of 6? Why is the death penalty for apostasy? A certain number of scientific errors, and something along those lines. And next thing I know, people are going crazy on that post, and I'm getting calls from my parents about removing the post. At that time, I hadn't been public about my apostasy. People are going crazy on that post.
Sorry.
And I'm getting calls from my parents about removing them from.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So my
That's an
parents
echo.
called me asking why did I post that. So I said, oh, I just don't agree with some of these things. And he's like, how dare you? You cannot. And then suddenly they ask, are you gonna go for Hajj or Umrah with us even? And I'm like, I don't know. And my parents said, how dare you? You're saying you're not a Muslim anymore. And initially the reaction was, I'm gonna disown you. You're not our son. Don't show your face to us. Never talk to us and all that. So I was like, okay. There was a certain point where even some of my relatives started sending me messages. Uh, some relatives, some school teachers of mine that I had on my friends list started calling my parents, telling them that, hey, your son is going crazy. And I'll just give you one example as to how indoctrination works and how it destroys critical thinking. I was in grocery shopping with my wife, and my parents called me at 4 in the morning, Pakistani time, and they say to me, hello, son, I think you have been possessed by a jinn. And I was like, what? I just to let you know that jinns are mythical creatures that Muhammad said are created from a smokeless fire that are all around us, but we can't see them. And then they have these special capabilities to fly around, time travel, teleport, morph into different shapes. So my
Uh,
parents actually thought I was possessed.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyways, go on. Yeah. I just feel the whole evil eye, jinns, magic, it's something that, Islam is kind of sold as if it's this scientifically accurate, beautiful religion that's rational, again, scientifically accurate. In it jives with a fitra or a common sense, yet it contains these weird things like jinns, evil eye. Evil eye is such a bizarre concept. Like, I can like martial. Like someone in the comments said, I like his eyebrows. You should be running in fear now because someone
Yeah.
praised you. Like, go and shave your eyebrows or something, and like put on a mask or something, and make toba and ask Allah to forgive your sins and read Surah till Surah Falak, 100 times. Like it's such a strange idea, and even the most like rational people. I met one friend who almost left Islam, although he didn't have the courage to leave Islam, so he ended up becoming Muslim again. But he told me when I was discussing evil eye with him, he's like, "Yeah, man, it happened to me." I'm like, "Come on." Yeah, I was gonna go to his university, and I was so excited about it. This guy almost left Islam because he found holes in Islam. So he has some intelligence. And then
Skepticism.
what happened was we were discussing, and then he's like, but then I told a bunch of guys, and one of the guys was like, really? You're gonna go to Malaysia to study? Wow, that's so cool. The next thing you know, it was like all ruined. It's all canceled. It's like, call, you gotta call the next day. It's like, yeah, you didn't get accepted and this and that. And it's like, damn it, it's because I told that guy. I knew it. All because of him, right? It's like as human beings, we like to make patterns where patterns don't exist. And we look at the sky,
Exactly.
and we see like, we see these beautiful things. And we're like, oh, Big Dipper, oh, Small Dipper, oh, Big Bear, Small Bear. Like, you even as babies, like we've evolved, this ability to recognize faces. So you make a little circle, you put two dots, and they'll see a face, right?
Yeah.
And we know that babies can recognize faces because we've done tests where we show them shapes and we see the way they react, right? So we have this kind of pattern recognition bias.
I think it's
That
called
we
pareidolia or something.
Is it? Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
if, we have this bias towards finding patterns in the world, and it's just like, yeah, okay, this guy did this, and it's funny. Oh my God, I want to share one funny story.
Okay.
So I have a coworker who was Christian, and he told me that he was like, man, you're so cool. You came out publicly and this and that, and you have courage. I'm like, nah. I said my situation is different. It's not like that. And he's like, listen, man. He's like, I told my wife, she got so mad at me. He's like, I know this is all bullshit, but like I still do the thing, and I'm like, and praying, and he's like, I know it's not true, but I still do it because and then he's like, after that happened, every little thing that happened in the house, my wife was like, see, like let's say the car didn't start or something. See, it's because you haven't doubt in Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior, right? It's like, no, I'm so sorry. I was just, you know me, baby. I was just chatting, just chatting with you. I didn't mean it. Like, so he kind of backtracked on the whole thing because he didn't want like a conflict with his wife. But yeah, unfortunately, we see patterns where patterns don't exist, and I think even when, I might have had some experiences like that too, where you start wondering after you leave Islam, is this happening because I left Islam? But like, what if good things happen to you? What if good things happen to you after leaving Islam? It's like, Allah allows me leaving Islam. No, it's shaitan. It's a test. It's a bad thing. It's suddenly like it's Allah is testing you by giving you like a better job. Like, imagine I left Islam, I got like this better job, I have a beautiful house, my marriage, like everything's going well for me. And it's like, oh, it's a test. Allah is testing you to see, like it's you never win this argument, right?
Yeah, it's like a circular argument where if anything good happens, it's always God loving you when they know, like it's from God, and anything bad happens, it's your fault.
Exactly. Someone's asking, why do you think women convert to Islam knowing the harm done to children and women? Well, they're assuming they see it that way, but why do women convert to Islam? What do you think?
Actually, why would anybody convert to Islam? It's all because of misinformation, hiding what the actual truth is. I mean, if you start telling these women that, hey, you can't be leaders, hey, you have to wear the veil or the hijab, otherwise God will punish you. Or if they tell them that your testimony and inheritance is half, you can't give khutbahs, you can't leave the house without your husband's permission, you can't even fast voluntarily without your husband's permission, then the Quran even literally allows men to beat their wives, like to discipline them at a certain point. But when girls when the husband does something, the woman can't beat him, right? So many double standards, so many misogynistic concepts, and then at one point Muhammad comes up, says that most dwellers of hellfire are women, and then he's comparing them to bad luck as in horses and women and houses, and then he's saying that women are evil omens, women are deficient in intelligence, periods are from Satan somehow, like all of these things. If you sorry, go ahead.
No, finish.
Yeah. So if these people who give dawah, if they actually project the true version or nature of Islam when they're trying to convert people, I'm sure nobody would. It's all misinformation. It's all concealing and sugarcoating everything to make it sound better.
Right. So my answer would be that I think there's some big reasons why people convert to Islam. One is similarity and connection to the previous beliefs. So for me, I was Muslim. I was Ismaili Muslim. Some people say they're not Muslims, and I converted to Sunni. For my wife, it was about similarity to the message of Christianity, and she was convinced that Father, Son, and Holy Ghost makes no sense. The idea of one God makes more sense. And she never really went into like the great details, like every little thing, like you're saying, right, about women's rights and stuff like that. In terms of, and the thing is, you can sell the argument, like especially to people that have conservative mindsets, that, well, Islam is actually good for women, right? Like Allah knows best why, he did certain things. For example, one man's witness is two women's. Like the typical response to that is something about women, they can focus on other, I don't know, some stupid, women can focus on other things or something about, women not inheriting as much as men. It's like, well, and I actually bought these arguments myself. I used to believe them. I was like, women inherit less than men because men have to take care of women anyways. I mean, a woman never has to work a day in her life, right? That's the typical thing, right? The the thing I didn't realize is that a lot of these arguments are very, very ethnocentric and very specific to the day, basically the time of Muhammad. So, you know, women not inheriting, like, let's say, first of all, and you don't think about the negative, because all you do is you listen to the same sheikhs talking, and you hear only one side of the story. You know, someone gives you a book on women in Islam, and you only see one side, and you don't think about, you know, looking up a rebuttal to any of these things. You don't think about talking to, like, you know, someone that knows these things, and like what other responses they would have. So when it says that, you know, like women get half of the inheritance, and the response is, well, men have to take care of them. Well, who's to say there'll be a man to take care of her, right? What if her brother gets double the inheritance than she does, and her brother's a jerk, he has no kids, she has kids, she has 5 kids, like I have 5 kids. Why should she get half of the inheritance and he gets like, you know, double?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make any sense. And then who is to say that the man is, her brother's going to take? Yeah, Islam says brother has to take care of her. Really? But it gives him all the money. Okay, but what kind of deal is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Just give her the money then. And then she doesn't need anyone to take care of her. Why would you say give him double the money? And please help me. Like, come on. Like, what kind of situation? Doesn't it just seem to you that it's just benefiting men at that point?
Yeah.
Like, and so like, you know, I think many people don't, like you said, they don't know the responses to these arguments. I always feel sad, like, when I see like women or men converting to Islam. And I honestly wonder, like, you know, when I see these like dawah booths they have, and when I see these videos some of my friends post from, like, you know, downtown, they have these dawah booths where people come and they convert to Islam. And I honestly wonder, like, how much do you know? Like, do you really think that all these things these guys told you is true? Like, you know what I mean? Just look up the counters, go online. And that's why I always recommend to Muslims that at least you should know both sides of the story, right? You should know the reasons for believing and the reasons for not believing. And then if you decide to believe, I mean, good for you. I mean, that's an educated that you've made, right? So someone else said something funny, that, like, if jinns were these invisible superior creatures with so much power, like, don't you think they'd have a better civilization than humans? Don't you think they'd have better things to do than troll humans?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm gonna make this guy crazy. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, so did you have to end up going for I guess you probably didn't have to end up going for like an exorcism or anything like that?
No.
Have you been to any of those things? Have you seen an exorcism?
Yeah. I have a history in this in my family, and it's this funny story where my mom told me that her dad, like my great granddad, went to a jungle, made some circle, used to sit at night, do some chanting, and then eventually he got control of 2 female jinns by sewing their hair on his body. And I was like, are you serious?
Okay.
And then she was saying that, oh yeah, and her grandma told her that if he wanted water, he would just say to the jinn, go get water, and a floating glass will come and just sit on the table in front of him. And I'm like, do you seriously want me to believe that?
You know what I find funny? I find funny that many people try to convince me back to Islam by jinns. It's like, yeah, man, just go see a jinn possession, you'll believe. Like, what the heck? Like, jinns converting people to Islam. This is the 21st century dawah. It's like, before jinns are misguiding people, now jinns are guiding people.
It's like saying, like, oh, just if you're a Muslim, then you can just go see a Christian exorcism, you'll become a Christian.
Yeah,
right?
It doesn't make any sense. I looked up an exorcism video. They're like disturbing, man. They're like, you have these like men like spraying water. Like there's this one like really disturbing one. It looks like it's in Somalia or Ethiopia. The guy has like a hose of water, like a fire hydrant, and he's like spraying all these women, and they're like getting like knocked over, and you see, oh my God, I'm gonna have to post this after someone made a clip, Street Fighter style clip of all of these type of practices from different religions, and like the churches where they go and they like push people and slap them, and like it's terrible. Tell them what they do.
There's this one where in Pakistan there's these people standing in a circle, and then there's this one peer or this saint guy, Muslim guy, who's doing this to people from afar, and the people are just going crazy and falling and pushing on the ground, and it's like, what's going on?
So why do you think that happens? How are those people being like pushed away, and what's going on there?
I think it's just hallucinations. And a lot of people do suffer from schizophrenia back home, but they don't realize what it is, and they just label it as possessiveness.
Right. I believe that's what it is. I think it's, I wouldn't call it, I would say like collective yeah, basically collective hallucinations or collective psychosis. It's a type of, the funny thing is, again, and this is why I love studying science. When we study science, we learn about our biases. We have a lot of cognitive biases. I mean, it's so true. Like, I've had this experience in real life too, where you can actually trick someone, where you can do a test where someone knows something is true, like they absolutely know it's true, but the more people tell them it's false, they'll start doubting themselves, and they'll be like,
Yeah.
like maybe he's right, like, you know what I mean? Like
a number game.
Yeah, exactly. Like you show them a number that's like a 5, you show everyone a 5 in the entire audience. And there's a trick. Everybody except one guy knows that it's a 5. Everybody knows it's a 5, but they're all going to play a trick on one guy. So then they ask like person A, and he's like 7, and then person B is like 7, person C is like 7, and then person A is like, what?
Really crazy.
It was 5. And then it goes to him, and then the next thing you know, it's like, he's like, yeah, it's a 5. Oh, it's a 7. He says it's a 7, and he copies everybody else. And it's like, no, it's a 5, and you said 7, right? You got tricked by everybody. So yeah, we definitely have some cognitive biases. We basically have we evolved a certain way, and because of the way we evolved, certain things just they don't work well in our brain. They're not rational, right? So it's always a challenge, right? We always need to focus on making sure that what we understand is true, and we're not being fooled, we're not being tricked, right? And so I think skepticism, especially in the age of fake news, right? There's so much fake news. Someone saying they saw a jinn behind me or behind you.
Yeah, I just saw that.
So yeah, so that's unfortunate. So do you still talk to your parents now? You have an okay relationship with them now, or did they calm down after that? Or are they still upset? What happened?
My dad's still upset. He at one point said that I wish nobody ever created social media so you wouldn't have gone public.
So is the issue just being public more? Like, was the issue like, I mean, obviously they're upset that you left Islam, but is a big part of it, that you're public about it? That's an issue too, because they're embarrassed or something?
Yeah, my dad says like he had like high hopes, and that me leaving Islam is like he's disappointed. I broke his heart. I couldn't fulfill his dreams, that. But my mom understands, on the other hand, that I explained to her, like, listen, it's my right to believe what I want, and you can't force me to believe anything, and that is violate just my basic human right. And he over time understood it, so I still talk to my mom a lot, but my dad just doesn't want to talk to me at all.
Right.
Now I'll mention one. Sorry?
How about your siblings?
Well, my siblings are quite young, so they're just kids. The youngest one's about 7, and then the other one's like 12. The one, there's just one more that's older, but I just don't want to talk about his personal beliefs and
right.
get him involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you believe now? Do you still believe in some sort of God? You don't believe in any God?
I find no evidence, or due to the lack of evidence of there being a God, I choose not to believe in it. And it's because if you're talking about such an important issue, like the existence of God, you need to have irrefutable, unambiguous, undoubtful evidence that leads to only one conclusion, that he exists. And I don't find it anywhere. It's all ambiguous. Just seeing that humanity has worshipped so many gods in the past, it seems to me like the whole concept is made up. I'm not saying that there cannot be a God. Yes, there is a possibility. We just don't have enough information.
Right. So this position is known as weak atheism, and this is what I subscribe to as well. So it's been 3 years for me. When I first left Islam, I didn't call myself a deist, but I understood the idea of deism, which basically meant that, there's some power, some force, some entity, some creator, not necessarily with personality, I definitely respect this position, the position of Spinoza, this position of Einstein, Michio Kaku, all of these great physicists who believed in some sort of God. Now, of course, they also used to, like Einstein used to say that, you know, the idea of a personal God was, if I'm quoting him correctly, it was stupid. He didn't believe in it. You know, even like, for example, Charles Darwin used to believe in God. I don't know if he ended up as an atheist or not, but like he definitely grew up believing in God. And then he started to wonder about how is it that a God created, you know, the world with so much suffering in it, you know, like wasps that basically parasite wasps that put the eggs inside other living beings and they eat living being alive, right? Like it's just like it's sick. Like why would anyone design it like that? And you know, as you study nature, you see all of these like bizarre, nasty, like cruel things, right? So for me, like I started off, I don't know what I was, but I wasn't Muslim, right? And as time went by, you know, I started to study. I read a book called Atheism Explained, and then I also listened to Matt Dillahunty on the Atheist Experience. He had a huge impact on me. And then I felt confident enough that I started I was calling myself agnostic. That's what I was saying. I was saying,
that's how it started out.
Yeah. Now I call myself agnostic atheist. But as time goes by, I'm definitely sliding from weak atheism to strong atheism, meaning I either going from basically I suspect there's no God to I don't think there's any God. Again, I do respect people that, you know, teleologically or for whatever reason they can't come to grips with the idea that the universe was always existing. You know, they'd rather believe there's some sort of something out there that made all of us. Like me, I'm at the same position as you. I'm not convinced that, and I want to correct one thing you said when you say I choose not to believe. I don't think there's actually a choice. I think it's literally either you believe or you don't believe. It's like you don't have a choice in the matter, right? The evidence provided to you, the life experiences you have, what you know about the world, and you know the flaws you found in the Quran. Probably you studied other religions. You haven't seen any evidence of any communication from any superior being. There's no choice in the matter. You can't choose, right? You know what I'm saying?
Like I even converted two people to Islam, so there's a lot of echo.
Yeah. Oh, is it echo now? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll lower that. Yeah.
And like one of them was Christian, one of them was agnostic, and after talking to those people, right, like it's just the same claims over and over again, and I just couldn't fathom. Like, listen, this God, this Almighty God, created this insanely huge universe, if He exists, and He uses the most primitive methods to communicate with us that are full of fallibility. I mean, using humans to communicate to other humans via revelation, when you put the human aspect in there, there's always going to be fallibility.
Yeah.
There's going to be lapses in memory and intelligence and reasoning and understanding. How about if God has infinite knowledge? Why doesn't He devise another miraculous medium to connect with us? You know, maybe like having talk to us, you know, maybe have a megaphone in the sky or something. Like there's so many different ways. He has infinite knowledge, but He came up with the most primitive method of sending some imaginary angel to talk to humans, right? A lot of things, like when you start looking at religions, so like going a lot, sorry.
Are you getting a lot of echo, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, let me put my headphones. Keep talking.
Okay. Yeah. Like you look at all of these religions, they're claiming that ours is right, yours is wrong. Ours is the only one right and yours is wrong. I'm like, why is there so much ambiguity about God? You know? Why, if God really wants us to succeed, why doesn't He stop this ambiguity? Suppose if Islam is the truth, save the 6 billion people that don't believe in Islam and are gonna go to hell. Why would God want to burn 6 billion people for an eternity?
Right, and it's 6 billion people for every generation, not just 6 billion.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand how eternal punishment can be reconciled with the most merciful nature of God. They're just polar opposites.
Right, and some people will say, like some Muslims will say, well, it's a finite punishment. Have you ever heard this opinion?
Yes, I did. I believe it's Ibn al-Qayyim that he said that.
Yeah, Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Arabi, I believe. What do you think of that?
I didn't look too much into it, but I believe the position is that since hell is a created thing, it will cease to exist at a certain point.
But do you
Hence,
think that's do you think that position is justified? That's what I mean.
uh, I don't believe so, because in the Quran it's pretty clearly said "Khalidina fiha abada," like they will abide
Oh,
therein
so
forever. So,
interesting thing is when Allah is talking about, well, when Muhammad is talking about hell, he says khalidina fiha, but he doesn't say abada. Abada is only for Jannah. Now, because of this tiny little subtle point,
Mhm.
people say there's no those that minority opinion exists, that there's no eternity in hell. Even though khalidina fiha means literally means forever, and
Mhm.
there's ample evidence from the hadith that it's eternal for the
Mhm.
non-Muslims, right?
Yeah,
Of course, Islam says that Muslims will eventually get out of hell, but for non-Muslims, it's an eternal punishment.
yeah. And then once you start reading torture that is described in the Quran, it is horrific. And I'll just give a few examples. Like God says that He will put 70 cubits long chains on people's necks and then drag them into hell when they try to get out. Uh, he will make them drink their own pus. He will make them eat of a tree that has spiky thorns. He will make them drink boiling water like thirsty camels. Their intestines will burn. When their skins are roasted, he's going to replace the skins over and over again so that they may suffer the pain more. I'm like, why would God want to torture his creation like this?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting, right? Like, if you think of it like this, like God was just there, just existing,
Hmm.
and then suddenly he decided, I'm going to make humans. I'm going to make these fallible creatures, like after billions of years of the universe existing. I'm going to make these fallible creatures. I'm going to test them, and the ones that screw up, I'm going to throw them in hell. Like, really, God? Like, really? Why? Why would you do that? Right? And did you have any issues, like, because of this fear of hell? Like, I know many Muslims, they can't leave Islam because they're so scared of the idea of hell,
Yeah.
and they get triggered by these descriptions of hell. Like, how did you have any problem with leaving Islam because of hell?
Yeah. Leading up to my apostasy, when I was first starting being skeptical about Islam, it was
Hmm.
a whole year-long thing. And for most of it, like halfway through, I was still telling myself, man, no, this can't be true. If I do, maybe the hadith are wrong, the Quran is infallible, I'll go to hell. It's so indoctrinated into people at such a young age that it's traumatic to think about it, you know? And yeah, it did play a part in me staying in Islam longer than I probably should have if it wasn't for this concept.
Oh, yeah. I guess in a sense, maybe for me too. But like now that you left Islam, do you still feel hell at all? Do you have doubt? Ever think about it?
No, to me, hell and heaven are just like unicorns or dragons.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't have any issues now. One of my friends is asking me on Facebook, did you make any effort? Of course, you don't have to go into great detail, but did you try talking to your family members? Just speak in general.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. Like I tried talking to my mom, and I asked, "What do you think about Islam?" Clearly saying that men have more authority over women, and women can be leaders, and it creates a society. And my mom says, "Yeah, I agree with it. Men are better than women." And I was like, "What? Did you just say that?" And she's like, "Yeah." And then she tried to explain it to me by saying that every decision your dad has taken has been wonderful, but when I try to do something, it's always stupid. I'm like, and that's what hurts because women end up being so indoctrinated that they accept being subjugated and then they
Right.
think it's a good thing from God.
Yeah.
My
Totally.
dad, for example, like he's a pilot,
Mhm.
okay, for about 40 years now for his life. Like, he knows that the earth is not flat. When I mentioned some verses from the Quran to him and what Muhammad said, he's like, oh, son, science keeps changing, but the Quran doesn't. So maybe 200-300 years later, science will prove that the earth might be flat. You know, you can't trust the Hollywood people.
Yeah.
Maybe all of that's just fake, the pictures from the satellite. And that's the thing, like, it's not uneducated people saying this stuff. It's educated people that are commercial pilots with master's degrees and stuff, and other women like with master's degrees in scientific education still believing in these ideas.
Yeah, yeah. And the way some of my acquaintances get out of this is slightly different. Some of my Canadian friends, what they'll do is they'll say the same thing you said, that science is always changing. You know, one day it's this, the next day it's that, and then they'll say, and the Quran is, you know, it never changes, and they'll give examples of science that change, Quran, how the Quran doesn't change, and then they'll talk about like they'll say, well, it doesn't, you know, like the Quran is not saying what you're saying it's saying. So, you know, whenever I bring up the example of chapter 21, verse 30, how don't the disbelievers see the heavens and earth were joined and be made out of everything water? And I'm like, how does this make sense, right? And then they will right away go and first they'll start with, oh, this talks about Big Bang. Then when you show that this is not Big Bang, because Big Bang is describing there was no earth at the time of the Big Bang. And then when you show them how every single ancient culture used to believe the same thing, then they'll be like, I don't care about ancient cultures. I just want to care about the Quran. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm just showing you that's what everybody thought. Okay, there's nothing surprising here. There's no like revelation, special revelation there. And then it's like, yeah, but Big Bang is just a theory, right? Like, come on. Like, you're talking. Okay, do you believe in satellites? Do you believe in lasers? Have you ever gone for surgery before? Have you ever used a computer before? Do you realize that GPS satellites is based on Einstein's theory of relativity? Do you realize that the theory of relativity predicts an expanding universe? Right? And then there's even a verse in the Quran that says we were expanded it, you know, in something about Musion, right?
Verse 47. Yeah.
Right. And then so, you know, there's two different ways to interpret that. You know, in the beginning they used to interpret it as the universe is vast. Now they say the universe is expanding. So it's kind of like when it fits the Quran, people want to use it. When it doesn't fit the Quran, they want to throw it out, or they want to say science is changing. Even though, you know, some things in science are so solid and so well established and so universally understood, it's just bizarre that anyone would even have a doubt about that, just because what some man, you know, 1400 years ago, or some books written 2000 years ago, like the Bible, say something that contradicts like what we clearly understand based on, it's not just like what we understood from like NASA or something. These are like, you know, it's been built up over the years by famous philosophers and mathematicians and Descartes and Euclid and Plato and you know, like these guys, like you're throwing out all of human civilization and history and learning over what one man said in the 7th century. And it's not even surprising what he said, right? He's just said what everybody else said at the time.
Yeah.
And go ahead. I was going to say, and on top of it, he wasn't even trying to convince anyone by that. Like, Muhammad wasn't trying to say, look, because the Quran has embryology in it, you have to become Muslim. No, he was just pointing out that, oh, this beautiful thing about how babies are born, and, you know, it goes from this to this to this to this. Like the Quran, when it's talking about 21:30, it says, don't the disbelievers see that the heavens and earth were joined? It's just referring to a well-known myth, right? A well-known misunderstanding that they had, right? And it's saying, yeah, see, you guys, how did this happen, right? Therefore, you must believe in Allah.
Yeah, it's just all of these myths and stuff, and they're all kind of originate from one source, or they're all copied and plagiarized, and they keep coming through. Like, for example, the Quran says that the earth and the heavens have seven heavens and 7 earths. And then when you look at Babylonian times, it's the exact concept, you know, and then the 7 earths, the 7 heavens, what else? Stoning the pillar 7 times, going around the Kaaba 7 times. All of this numerology and this mythical mysteries with numbers and stuff. And hello?
Yeah. No, I'm here. I'm here. Go on.
And all these myths and these things, they get just like plagiarized, and they're the same what people said in their time. And that's just what I don't understand. Like, it's so hard to people to just see that the things Muhammad said were just befitting for his time, his understanding. Like, for example, a famous example is he said that the sun set in a pond of water, right? And it's not just him, it's the Quran says that too in Surah 18, verse 86, and
Surah Kaf.
yeah, Surah Kaf. And funny thing is, it's very clear that it says it sets in there. Once you look at Muslim history, like the exegesis of the Quran, for literally 450 years after Muhammad, Muslims actually believed that yes, it physically sets in a pond of hot water. The first time the idea that was put forward was like 450 years after Muhammad, that maybe it was just from Dhul-Qarnayn's perspective. And then if you look at Tabari, Jalaluddin Tabari, who's one of the most recognized exegetes of Islam and the Quran, one of the biggest scholars, he literally writes in his book that there's 180 springs on the eastern corner of the world and 180 spring on the western corner of the world, and the sun sets in one and then comes out the other, and this goes on till the year ends.
Mm-hmm.
Kinds of beliefs,
Yeah.
these kind of
Sorry,
beliefs, these kind of beliefs have been going on throughout, and it's just so easy to see through these, and I don't know why still people try to justify these insanities, like these beliefs that don't make sense.
So big shout out, I guess, to the Master Arab.
Yeah.
He did a wonderful job on this topic, and
Awesome.
highlighting the points on how it was 450 years before people got the point. And that's exactly what you would expect to see from a book that's written by a man. Like people will say to you, well, people will say to me, well, just because the tafsir is wrong doesn't make the Quran wrong. Like, you know what I mean? You're strawmanning the Quran.
Yeah.
And I'll say, okay, that's a fair point, that just because the tafsir is wrong doesn't mean the Quran is wrong. But here we're talking about people that understood the Quran best, people that, they understood the Quran best of all, more than anybody else. They understood the Arabic language. They were masters of, they lived closer to the time of Muhammad, and these people didn't get it. And if these people didn't get it, you expect us to get it, right? And so you're getting to the point now where you're allowing the Quran to continue to change in such a way that you can never disprove it. It's unfalsifiable. So, my question is always, like, are you going to basically, no matter what the Quran says, you're going to make an excuse for it because you are the presuppositionalist? If that's the case, then actually there's no point having a dialogue, because you've actually acknowledged that you don't care about the truth, right? You're a presuppositionalist. You are willing to bend over backwards in order to make it make sense, even when it makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
Like why does Allah need to make, like, basically Allah is misguiding people by leaving ambiguity, confusion, and doubt in his final book, right? So I mean, yeah, so the tafsir is the tafsir, and yeah, the tafsir might not be the correct opinion, but then, like, you know what I mean? Like, that means nobody has a correct opinion, even the scholars of the language. And why is it that only when science is giving us, telling us that this is wrong, that's when we start changing the opinion, the interpretation, right? You know what I mean? So I mean, I have to give credit to Muhammad, because his Quran is vague enough so that it's managed to survive a lot longer than the Bible. The Bible has like worse issues in terms of science, and especially when it comes to like the Earth being, if you take it literally, like 6,000, now 8,000 years old. That's even harder to kind of buy, but people will even buy that. They'll accept that the Earth is 8,000 years old, which is the most ludicrous, ridiculous
idea.
The most ridiculous, stupid thing on, like, anyone can actually believe, because there's like so much evidence that tells us that's not the case, right? So coming to that, did you say that you've actually got like death threats from Muslims, or like people reacted really badly to this? What you've been doing?
Oh yeah, like I have received all sorts of death threats from people, and it's not just that. I'll give you one example. This one guy uh, contacted my wife on Facebook and was trying to convince her to kill me at night while I'm sleeping.
Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah, I'm not joking.
Wow.
Like
I'm
he would,
shocked.
yeah.
I, I don't know if someone contacted my wife and she never told me or what. But someone did leave a comment on my YouTube saying, it's a joke. It's like, oh, she's going to kill him in his sleep or something, right? And I found that really funny. I'm like, no, man, it's not going to do that. Give me a break, right? Oh my God. Okay. So that's pretty crazy. But this is all online, right? Nothing in real life?
Yeah, well, nothing in real life so far. Like I've not run into anybody, but yeah, online threats are abundant.
So in your local community where you live,
Mhm.
and how do people take it? Do they know?
Everybody knows actually. Almost all of them just unfriended me, blocked me, started calling me names. Some of them tried to talk to me about it, and the same apologetic arguments. Once you start talking to them, and when there comes a point where if you do prove them wrong on a certain point, they just lose lose their minds, and they'll like start uttering threats to you. They'll block you. But in general, the response from the community has in Canada been way better compared to what I've been getting from Pakistan.
Oh yeah. And so just to add on to that a little bit more, someone's asking, are your wives still Muslim? And by wives, they mean each of us one wife. We don't have multiple wives. Only Muslims are allowed to have multiple wives.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, both of our cases, our wives are still Muslim. And yeah, my wife prefers I don't speak about her too much. So I will leave it at that. If anyone wants to know more details about my wife, you can see my video where I interview her, and she talks about how she converted to Islam, how my apostasy affected her life, and all that nonsense. Not nonsense. It's an interesting video. Do check it out.
Okay.
And I think Abdul Hanan will get into more details about his wife at some point. But right now, just like my wife, I think that privacy is important to our lives too. Not everybody wants to come out and say, hey, look, everybody. You know what I mean? Like our families do deserve respect and privacy. And as interesting and curious as everyone wants to be, for personal reasons, we prefer not to get into all of the details, right? And because we still got to live our lives, and we don't, So that brings up the question of like, what type of topics have you been posting about? You mentioned one of the things you found quite interesting is the whole idea of Quran variants.
Yeah. So one thing that's taught to Muslims all around is that there's just one Quran, and it's literally word to word the same as what Muhammad had and what he recited. And the Quran that we have today is literal exact words to the dot, according to some scholars, referencing Maulana Maududi here,
Mhm.
saying that it's the exact words Muhammad uttered 1400 years ago. So when I
Okay.
started looking into that, I found a lot of interesting things. Uh, Muslims will be shocked to know that there's at least 14 different recitations and physical Qurans present in the world right now. You can easily purchase about 6 different Qurans in different parts of the world, uh, and two of them don't agree with each other. There's differences. There's uh, textual differences. There's differences of missing words. Whole words are missing. Whole letters are different. Uh, Meanings sometimes do get changed. And I'll go into a few of them right here. What I'll do
These
is
are the 7 Qira'at, right?
yeah,
Hafs,
Warsh,
Warsh, and
Duri,
all of
Susi, yeah. So I'll just open up a few. Let me just open them up and then I'll
just
share.
just to emphasize what he's saying, these variants of the Quran actually have differences in wording. So the words are actually different, and they have different meanings. So it's not just one meaning. And you know, at the time of the Prophet, one of the companions was reading one of the versions, and he read it, and then Omar got really mad, and he went back to, he said, I'm going to take you to the Prophet, I'm going to tell him what you said. He took him back to the Prophet, and he said, read to the Prophet what you just read to me. And he read it, and the Prophet was like, oh, actually there's 7 different versions, and you know, I was revealed to me in 7 dialects, and all dialects are correct. I actually had a friend tell me something very interesting. One of my friends from that agnostic Muslims group I added you to, Abdullah, and he said that it makes sense that if there was an issue with multiple Qurans in the community, it would have made perfect sense to invent a hadith about like justifying it. Like that actually made absolutely perfect sense. Like you have a problem, like you have a problem, and just like Muhammad, when he came up with, like, he started forgetting verses and stuff, you know, Allah says, oh, I don't let you forget a verse except I give you another similar one. Like, say what? Similar one? Like, you're gonna make me forget a verse and give me a similar one? That doesn't make it
or a
make
better
any
one,
sense. Or a better one, or a similar one. It's like, well, hello, Allah, please plan your verses a little bit more carefully so we don't have to go through this whole like canceling stuff. But like, yeah, the same thing with the hadith. The hadiths, probably a lot of them were invented after the time in order to justify certain things that existed, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say like those hadith were a bad attempt at trying to fix the variations and the discrepancies found in the Quran at that time. And I'll just show you a few variants and how they might affect the meaning sometimes. This is from the normal Quran we found today, miskin, which means one poor man. But if you look at in the Warsh Quran, here it says masakin, which means many poor people. And this verse is talking about how many people you need to feed for compensation. So the meaning is actually different. So in this one it says am taqulun, that, or would you say. But in the Warsh Quran it says am yakulun, they say. So the subject of the person who's talking about it changes. And this is a very significant one. In the current Quran it says qala, he says that the messenger, that is Muhammad, said the following, my Lord, judge with the truth. In the Warsh Quran it says qul, which means Allah is telling Muhammad to say the following words. So we kind of get like, is Allah telling Muhammad to say the words, or is, you know, Muhammad already said them? It's a different meaning. Then you can see like there's 1, 2, 3, 4 letters here, and there's an extra alif. It changes the meaning again. There's a bunch of variants like this, and I can go into more detail to show you some more significant ones. Look, the letter itself is missing. It's alladhina in the normal Quran, the Hafs Quran we have, but it's walladhina. The letter is different. Why is God speaking so differently? And this one's really important. Minha means from it, meaning, and this verse is talking about person's wealth and his gardens. But the second Quran, the Warsh Quran, says minhuma. Not only is there an extra letter here, there's a different meaning. It says here it refers to one thing, and here it's referring to 2 things. You can also see that the numbering of verses is different in both Qurans. Again, different letters, different words. The differences, letters are different. So again, we'll come back to these in a bit. What the point of showing these was just to let the Muslims know that there isn't only one Quran in the world right now. The myth that they're taught from childhood that there's only one version of the Quran. You pick up a Quran in the United States and you pick up one in Australia or Saudi Arabia, it has to be this exact thing. which it is not.
Yeah, yeah, and just to emphasize, this is standard Sunni accepted theology. This is not some weird, let's say Tom Holland or Dan Gibson. Muhammad's from Petra or something, Jordan, and he didn't grow up in Mecca. These are not like far out radical Islamic theories. This is mainstream Islam, like mainstream Sunni doctrine that there's multiple, like they call them readings of the Quran. But 99% of Muslims are not aware of any such variations in the Quran, and it boggles your mind. Like just like the whole idea of, abrogations is quite troubling. This is also quite troubling. That how is it that there's different versions of God's like revelation, final revelation, right? So yeah, it's another confusing thing.
And once you start looking at like the hadith, right, from Muhammad and stuff, and his companions, when they talk about the Quran, you see that they're talking about hundreds and hundreds of missing verses. One famous example is that one companion asked another one, how many verses do you have in Surah 33, that is Surah Ahzab? They said, we only have 73 verses in it now. This was after Uthman had standardized the Quranic texts. The companion said, I remember that we used to recite it with 200 verses.
Right.
So literally, there's about 120 verses that just disappeared. Then
Right,
there's this whole idea of the missing verses about stoning the adulterers. Right? And the funny thing is that for some reason, these verses were in the Quran, then they were abrogated, they were removed in recitation from the Quran, so they're no longer found there, but the ruling still applies that you still stone the adulterers. So I was like, well, what's the point of taking the verse out if you're still going to keep the legal ruling, right?
Yeah. And here again, we come to like troubling examples where Muslims are faced to either acknowledge that the presuppositionalists, and basically no matter what you tell them, no matter what Muhammad did, no matter how little sense this stuff makes, they're still going to believe in it. Or they're going to look at these as red flags, because that's what they are, the red flags, right? All of these things are red flags. So yeah, that's a good point, actually.
And also, when you start looking into this, the companions themselves, like the way they were disagreeing on stuff, and I'll just try to find this one incident where Abdullah bin Mas'ud was Muhammad's, let's say, go-to Quran teacher. And as you can see here, Muhammad says that learn the Quran from 4 persons, and the first person he gives is Abdullah bin Mas'ud. And even the person who's narrating this hadith says, and he started from his name, which scholars said meant that Abdullah bin Mas'ud is the best Quran teacher. But once you look at this highlighted part here, when Osman was standardizing the Quran, and he had Zayd bin Thabit, another companion of Muhammad, do it, look at what Abdullah bin Mas'ud says. Abdullah bin Mas'ud disliked Zayd bin Thabit copying the Quran, and he said, O you Muslims, avoid copying the Quran and the recitation of this man. By Allah, when I accepted Islam, he was but in the loins of a disbelieving man. Meaning Zayd bin Thabit, and it was regarding this that Abdullah bin Mas'ud said, O people of Iraq, keep the musahif that are with you and conceal them. For indeed Allah said, whoever conceals something, he shall come with what he concealed on the day of judgment. And this has been graded authentic in Jamia Tirmizi. So you see Abdullah bin Mas'ud using such severe words against Zayd bin Thabit, whose Quran allegedly we read today. Eventually what happened was Osman and his followers were able to get Abdullah bin Mas'ud's Quran and eventually burn it. But some of the recitations were used, and they still survived. And there's a whole post that I made about it, just showing like how different it was. Like, let's suppose, take this example. It says fi mawasim al-hajj. In the actual Quran we have today, this word is there, fadlam min rabbikum. There's different words. There's certain instances where literally whole sentences are missing.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I never actually looked into this
And
stuff before.
these are all documented by Muslim scholars, and it's funny
But
that the Muslim scholars purposefully don't talk about these variations as openly as they should. And hence Muslims end up coming up with the claim that there's only one Quran that has survived the test of time, word to word, letter to letter, from Muhammad.
right, yeah, that's a good point. That Muslim scholars are very smart to avoid talking about things that will cause doubt to people. One of them is multiple Quran readings, although some people would talk about it, but for the most part, it's not highlighted. Nobody who goes to Medina studies Yajuj and Majuj and Alexander the Great, Dulqarnain, and the similarity to the Syriac Alexander romance. Nobody studies how embryology in the Quran has been ripped off by, what was it again?
Sorry?
Who was it ripped off from again? The Quranic embryology, the Greek.
Galen, I believe.
Galen, yes, Galen. Yeah, Galen. That's what I was looking for. Nobody talks about these things. So what you end up with is Muslims that are not aware of any of these issues. The whole fact that when Muhammad died, there was so much chaos and tribulations and disasters. He never left a clear successor after him. The fact that the Quran was never compiled into a book format while he was alive. I mean, these things should make you wonder, like, what kind of God plans his final revelation like this? What kind of God lets, previous revelations get corrupted intentionally, right? That pretends to kill someone on a cross, which created basically the biggest religion in all of humanity, that biggest false religion, which is Christianity, and just lets it happen because he pretends that Jesus has been crucified. And then supposedly Jesus was never crucified because he's Muslim and he's going to come back and make Muhammad the true messenger. Like, there's so many reasons not to believe. If someone tells you, like my friend who told you, oh, you're still young, you don't have good reasons to believe Islam. I was like, ha ha ha. What do you know? You didn't even talk to the guy. He's saying yes. Like, that guy's, what a joke. Like, what do you think though? What do you think? Like, would you ever come back to Islam? Is it possible?
I think I've seen so much in depth into Islam that there is just no way I can accept that the Quran is from God, or that Muhammad is his messenger, because of his teachings himself. Like, if you want to refute Islam, just read the Quran yourself from a rational viewpoint, and you'll see like the book is full of mythical stories, like floating mountains on top of people, sticks turning into snakes.
How about Adam and Eve? Like, okay, there's all those ones, but what about something we
Yeah,
can test? What about something we can
yeah,
test?
yeah. Like the whole Adam and Eve story, and then it's Satan then deceiving them, and then they starting humanity. And on the other hand, we have evolution, that is the foundation of modern biology, and people are willing to give up on evolution over and disregarding mountains of evidence we have for evolution, just for a matter of blind faith, because some guy said something that was written down in a book 1400 years ago.
You sound quite upset, actually.
Yeah, it is upsetting. It's just seeing all the evidence, and then still seeing like people kind of argue these things. It's just sad. It just saddens me. Like yesterday, I got told by this one person that uh, Islam is patriarchal, but women are happy in an Islamic Sharia compliant society, and women nowadays are unhappy. So we should return to the 7th century values of Islam to make people live better lives.
Crazy.
And it just boils my blood sometimes that you still have to explain stuff to people that rights of women are actually a good thing, not a bad one.
What do you think of the current state of the Muslims politically? Like, issues with Saudi bombing Yemen. I don't know how much you want to get into like specifics like that. But like, it's interesting that Saudi Arabia is sitting on one of the biggest religious tourism industries in the world. Like 8 billion, $10 billion a year in
Yeah.
income they get every year from this guaranteed. And isn't it funny how it all started as religious tourism even back then? Like the whole idea of the whole idea of saying this place is special. This is God's house. So you guys, if you come here, you'll come, you visit God's house, you'll buy some nice carpets, some spices. We have a prostitute here. I mean, that was part of it back then as well. And so they made this whole religious tourism, and then they brought the idols, and you can buy your own little idols, and it started off as religious tourism, like more than 1400 years ago, like from whatever time the Kaaba was built, not by Abraham, but by whatever idol worshippers wanted to build it. And then, not that there's anything wrong with idol worship. It is it's un-Islamic, but I mean it's also irrational. But I mean, whatever. Like it's just a religious form that early humanity did, and some still do. And to this day, it's still the biggest moneymaker. That Kaaba is one hot property.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll tell you that. So what do you think about the world political situation? What do you want to say about that?
Well, just speaking of Saudi Arabia, I just want to comment a little bit about on the whole Hajj and Umrah thing. Is all of these practices that Muhammad did existed before Islam, literally all of them. Like, why would I go to kiss a stone, a meteorite, or why would I go around a black box 7 times, or why would I run between 2 mountains or throw imaginary pebbles at a pillar and think that I'm stoning Satan, right? And then shave my head and slaughter a bunch of animals. These are all pagan practices, but Muhammad saw the importance of these and he incorporated them and then came up with this idea of Hajj, and it's just a money grab, and it's tourism, it's an industry. And with other political issues, like in terms of the Muslim world, like they're in a, let's say, confused state, divided into so many sects. Sunnis are killing Shias, and then we know that there's the Islamic State popping up. Then Saudi Arabia has different forms of Islam they're pushing forward. It's they can't even agree on what the Quran says, let alone what Muhammad says, and the whole community is falling into turmoil.
Yeah. And do you think Islam has anything to do with the current state of the Ummah being behind in pretty much almost everything? I mean, like, many Muslim countries are so backwards, and some of them are even barbaric. Like, what do you think about that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Islam has a lot to play, and I'll just look at Pakistan, where I lived for like 19 years. Like recently, like I mentioned, Mashal Khan, right? And then these kind of beliefs, like killing apostates and blasphemers, stem from within Islam, with the intolerance from Islam. Other countries, like what happened in Malaysia, I believe 2 homosexual men were persecuted. They're all Islamic beliefs, and Muhammad said all of these things. And for example, what ISIS does, like stone people or chop people's hands off or throw homosexuals off buildings, all of these things are what Muhammad did. So Islam has a huge role to play in it. And for example, in Saudi Arabia, right, like women They can't do almost anything. They can't even make a police report by themselves. They need a male guardian to do it. And all of these ideas stem from Islam. It's just, it's a mosh pit of bad ideas. And saying that separating politics and Islam is just wrong, because Muhammad wasn't just a spiritual leader. He gave a whole government system, a whole way how to interact with other states, other people. So saying that it's just political and not the religion's fault, that's totally wrong.
Is it the West's fault?
No. To a certain extent, yeah. Like U.S. Intervening in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, Syria.
It is to a certain extent, but most of the problems Muslims face is because of their own shortcomings found in the religion.
Right, and I believe that, you know, the whole idea of, you know, having your half of your people, basically women, stuck at home or encouraged to stay home. You know, there's many intellectual women. There's very many smart women, smart girls that can do huge things. And if you go by, the more strictly you follow Islam, the more you would think that, you know, women have to stay home. The best place for a woman is inside of the house, and on top of that, inside the like the best place for her to pray is inside like the deepest part of her house. And when she goes out, she has to, you know, cover, and she shouldn't draw attention to herself like the people. Like, I saw a video about this, I believe she was either Pakistani or Indian, girl that was doing really well in Taekwondo, and she was selected to go to the tournament. She was doing extremely well. Her mom was telling her, no, this is not right. You shouldn't be going in front of men. And she's like, yeah, but I'm wearing hijab. She's like, no, I don't like this. You're bringing dishonor to her family. And her brother's like, yeah, this is bad. You're embarrassing us. Like, you know, a woman going outside and punching people and, you know, this and that. And it's like, when you have values that demean half of your people, like, I know someone who's a friend of my wife who wears niqab. She started wearing niqab. She used to be a public school teacher, and then she dropped out of teaching public school. I mean, this girl has a teaching degree and whatever, master's or whatever, and now she's home with the kids. And I'm not saying it's bad for women to be home with the kids. That's fine. That's a choice that many women choose to make, including my wife. But I'm just saying that when you devalue half of your people, when you spend so much energy on memorizing this holy book, and, you know, practicing it and memorizing all of these ancient rules about how to wash yourself, and is it 3 times or 1 time, and you have to go up to here, or you have to go up to here, you wash your neck, or you don't wash your neck, and I'm sure you know all these things. Does touching a woman break your wudu or not break her wudu? And then on top of it, in Ramadan, you spend so much of your energy into this thing where, you know, men are like, not men, like everybody's like dying and tired, and like productivity goes down, and it's like party mode for some people. They stay up all night, and they eat all night, and they sleep all day. And so it's like, clearly these things that have a cost attached to them, right? And if it's so important to you that you want to invest all of your time and energy into this religion, of course your society is going to fall behind, especially if it doesn't value progress, it doesn't value science, it doesn't value, you know, technology as much. And many Muslims do value these things. I'm not trying to say all Muslims are against these things, but I feel like the system of liberal democracy is actually the best thing that we've come up with for the world. And because of liberal democracy, people thrive in liberal democracies because it's good for people. It's good for human beings. It's good for all religions. Like, I grew up as a Muslim, a practicing Muslim in Canada, and I had every right to say my prayers, and I respect the rights of Muslims, Christians, Jews, Hindus, atheists, whatever, whether they want to follow the religion, whether they don't want to follow the religion, whether they want to pray, they don't want to pray. I respect the personal right to follow their own religion, for self-determination, for justice, no matter what the sex, gender, you know, like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UNHR, UDHR, which came out after World War II, is one of the best things that we have as humanity, which is to respect people despite the religion, race, creed, sexuality, gender, whatever. We respect people for who they are. And I think this is something good that we have. And of course, in the Islamic system, you know, kuffar, dhimmis, they're like second-class citizens. They're not equal, right, to Muslims.
And yeah, and like with the whole thing about coexisting and respecting other people's beliefs, when you look at what the Quran says, it's like only religion in the land should be of Allah's. And then the society, it says, like in Surah 9, verse 29, it says that fight the people of the book, that is the Christians and the Jews, until they pay, until they believe, or they pay a special tax called jizya, which is literally religion-based discrimination. And then once you start going into what Muhammad said, I'll show a few things. Just give me a second. Now just look at what he's saying about living with the Jews and Christians. He says, if I live, if Allah wills, I will expel the Jews and Christians from the Arabian Peninsula. What kind of message are you giving to the people about coexistence and tolerance?
And isn't that what he did, actually? Like, to kick out all of the disbelievers from the Arabian Peninsula, right? And then Surah Tawbah, Surah Bara, or Surah Tawbah, the only surah in the Quran doesn't start with Bismillah. It's all about, you guys have this many days to get the hell out of here, or else
we're gonna kill you.
That's it. I'm gonna kill you, basically. Right? We're gonna catch you and kill you. So that's Surah Bara.
That chapter of the Quran is so vicious that they had to ban it even being taught in Pakistani schools.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What? I never heard this before.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I'm not joking. That would happen. There was a huge debate in Pakistan at a certain point as to teach some parts of the Quran and whatnot in like the government school system. Like here again, you see Muhammad on his deathbed telling people that fetch me something or come with writing material so I might write and tell you something that you won't go astray. And in the end, he says, expel the pagans from the Arabian Peninsula. And this is his last words at the end of his life. And if you look at this tradition, you see the implementation of this happening is first, Omar, one of the caliphs of Islam, finds out that two religions, deens means religion, shall not coexist in the Arabian Peninsula. He goes through a long length to make sure that that statement is true. Then he actually expels the Jews and from the Arabian Peninsula. And this is where the problem starts about intolerance in the religion. And that's something that normal Muslims, if you show them these sayings of Muhammad and these verses, the only reply they come up with is, oh, you're taking it out of context, oh, you're not understanding it properly, you're just an Islamophobe, and then they start calling you racist while Islam is not even a race.
And the funny thing is that we don't, like me and you, we don't attack people based on the religion. I mean, I just finished telling you how I respect everyone's, beliefs. I mean, I don't respect the beliefs, but I respect the right to believe. Let's put it like that. Yeah. I definitely don't respect the beliefs. Because many beliefs do not deserve respect. Anyways.
Definitely.
But the Quran, it literally attacks people, not just beliefs. It says the mushrikun are najis, which is filth, innal mushrikun are najis, don't let them approach Masjid al-Haram after this day. And then Muslims say, no, that's not physically filthy, that's spiritually filthy. Oh, that's much better. I'm spiritually filthy. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Deaf, dumb, and blind, they will not believe. Worse than animals, they're like cattle. No, even worse than cattle. Stuff like that. Now, I want to kind of get into one more thing, and then I do have another final question. Well, two more things. What do you think of Muhammad, before, I mean, obviously, as a Muslim, you thought he was the best thing ever. But like, what do you think of him now? And don't get killed, please. So just think about how you want to answer this.
Okay. I definitely do not believe he was the best example ever as the Quran propagates. I mean, let's just start with a few things. He was 54 years old and he ended up marrying a 6-year-old girl.
Yeah, if that story is true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he consummated the marriage when she was 9. Then Muhammad married his own adopted son's wife,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and then made a special exception in the Quran to talk about it, as if like Allah didn't have time to mention the sequence of Hajj and how to pray, but he had time to talk about Muhammad's personal sex life. Then
He didn't have a opportunity to tell people to ask for consent before sleeping with the slaves or to marry the slaves first,
yeah.
right? Like no room for that. But what? Okay, so sorry for interrupting you, but just to ask quickly, did any of these things affect you as a Muslim or no? Or you only learned about them after?
No, I knew those things, but I would just brush him off saying, oh, there's got to be a hidden meaning, behind it that I can't understand. And then I would actually use the Quranic verse and think Surah Maida where it says that don't ask these questions because if you keep asking these questions, you'll become disbelievers. It literally says that.
Yeah. Okay, so go on. So what do you think about Muhammad? Continue.
So then he also makes an exception. So Allah says Muslim men can only marry 4 women. Muhammad in Surah 33 makes an exception saying that, no, I can marry as many women as I want and have as many sex slaves as I want. And then the verse says, oh, Muhammad, this is just for you and not for the other believing men.
Right.
Then now how Muhammad was exploiting the whole ideology of Islam and the war machine was hilarious. He launches wars, then he takes slaves. He already has like 9, 10 wives. He's still taking more slaves.
Right.
And there's this one incident that stands out is the incident of Safiya binti Huay, who's one of Muhammad's wives. So Muhammad kills her whole family in Medina and butchers all the men of her tribe, then attacks her fortress in Khaybar, kills her husband and her family, then gives that lady away as a slave to one of his own companions. Then some other guy comes up to Muhammad and says, hey, that girl is very beautiful and the daughter of the chiefs and she's only befitting of you. So Muhammad's like, oh, I want that girl for myself. At that time, Muhammad had multiple wives.
Right.
He then asks that guy to come back and then begs him to give the slave to him. And then in the end, they come to a bargain that Muhammad gave 7 slaves to that guy just to get that one girl. Guess what? This thing, he killed her family the same day. He married her the same day.
And she was 17, right? That's according to the story.
Like if he was a merciful prophet, he should have hey, stop exploiting women in this weak state instead of be nice to them. But no, he's like, take as many sex slaves as you want. And then he was telling his men that even if the women that you take as sex slaves are married, Allah then revealed in Surah 4, verse 24, that you can have sex with married women if they are your slaves.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting that Muslims often say, none of his wives were virgins except for Aisha. What do you think about that?
Well,
that argument?
There's a couple of interesting arguments about it. They say basically Muhammad only married women just so you know that he can help them out. But once you look at the incident of Hafsa, who was Omar's daughter, she was actually an older woman, and she, at the end of her age, became, let's say, gained a lot of weight. And
this is Sauda.
Sauda,
right?
Sauda.
Yeah, not Hafsa. Hafsa was young too. She was,
yeah. Sorry about that. Then she fears Muhammad will divorce her because of her heavy set. She gives up her day so Muhammad can spend her night with his child bride Aisha.
Right. Yeah, exactly. This was another really disturbing point when I learned it. after I left Islam, oh sorry, not after I left Islam, while I was still researching this stuff, I was like, like I never thought about it. Like I read this before so many times. I'm like, oh, that's cool. She gave up the night, whatever, whatever. But then when I thought about it, like later on, after I think it was David Wood who pointed it out, and he's like, well, this is not right. I was like, he's right. This is not right. Like that's not what you expect from a man of God. That's not what you expect from the role model for all of humanity. You expect him to stay with his wife and to say, I love you, and you were there for me when I needed you, and yeah, you gained a little bit of weight, but yeah, it's fine. You can, you know, you still want someone to sleep with and cuddle with. It's not like it's not only about sex, right? I mean, there's more to relationships, and but I guess when you have 9 wives, and yeah, and I guess yeah, that's the thing. Like women have a weak position in Islamic in Islamic marriage, and Islamic society, and in Islamic marriage, they are literally like a couple of words away from being
divorced.
Divorced, right? And
like
that's
a man can just say talaq, 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 that is divorce, 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 and the lady gets divorced. But if the lady wants a divorce, she can't say the words and get a divorce. She has to go through a whole judge and a whole court system.
Right. And I think the majority of Muslims are against triple talaq, like all at once. So normally when I mention that, people will say, well, yeah, but you know, you're not supposed to do that. And the response to that is, well, first of all, it's at the time of Muhammad, it's still counted as a final divorce. But let's put that aside. My point is, even if you do the divorce, Islamic divorce, properly, meaning not triple talaq, it's still messed up. Like your entire relationship can be destroyed, not in one instant, but still quite easily, like just over a couple of fights. Like you can have a fight, like especially the longer you're married, like, you know, if I've been married like 13 years now, or 12 years or whatever, like depending on how long you've been married, the longer you go, the more the chance that you'll hit this third divorce, right? Because you get mad once, you say divorce or talaq, or you're no longer my wife, and then, you know, you forgive her because you have all the power, and you forgive her, and you take her back, you sleep with her again, so that counts as instant makeup. And then you're considered married again, and then again you say talaq or divorce, or I don't want to be your husband anymore, you're no longer my wife, and then it happens again. So like the third time it happens, the only way to marry her now, and I'm sure you know about this, is a halala marriage. Do you know people that did this, or have you heard about this in Pakistan?
I wouldn't go into too much details, but it has happened in my own family, really close relatives, but I just don't.
Wow. No, you shouldn't. Don't say what it is. Definitely.
Yeah, but it's happened in front of my eyes, like this whole concept and
halala.
Yeah.
Can you explain what they have to do? What they had to do?
So basically, what happens is, if you divorce your wife a third time and you want to get back with her because you realize, oh, you made a mistake, your wife and you cannot get married till the girl marries some other guy and consummates the marriage with him, and then divorces him and remarries you back again.
Right.
It is the most nonsensical concept of like I have heard. Like I don't have words to explain.
Yeah, it's pretty darn bizarre. Yeah, it is really bizarre. Yeah. I agree with you. And so here's the funny thing. This is what we see in Islam, and I'm laughing because it's so dumb. Sorry, I'm being too mean. My friend said I'm being too mean, and I'm being too. Anyways, okay, it's not really intelligently thought out. So the whole problem with Islamic law is it's so damn strict, in a sense, like the consequences are so severe. So like talking about stoning an adulterer, like you're killing the guy to death in a violent, brutal way. So it's like so severe that, you know, it's like you don't want to do it. So what did Muhammad do is he said you have to have 4 witnesses of intercourse, which is almost impossible. Yeah. So it's like, what the heck? Like you have like this super severe punishment, and then you have like super severe conditions, which is like, what's the point of doing such a stupid thing like that? Or like this thing with the divorce, like it's final, it's so final that you have to go through this crazy thing if you want to come back to it. So it's like Muhammad put so much power in men's hands just to break up the relationship, but to scare them, he said, just in case, just to let you guys know, someone else has to fuck her for you to get it back. So it's
Exactly.
like, make sure you don't do it. It's like, but why did you give me the power
first.
in the first place? Like, why did you let me do this stupid shit in the first place? Like, shouldn't we have like talked about it and negotiated and discussed like calmly? Like, why would you just make it over the single word that I say? And this used to really bother me as a Muslim, this divorce law. I couldn't get it through my mind. I'm like, how does this make sense? I don't get it. It just seems so weird. Like, and I just accepted it. I'm like, okay, I have no choice. I have to accept that this is the way it is. But it really troubled me. I was like, this makes no sense. And then someone once, I heard this Islamic lecture where he said, you know what, if you end up divorcing your wife 3 times, then, you know, Allah designed it that way that it makes sense. If you actually got to the 3rd time, then it makes sense that you should break up with her. I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, I guess. But then when I think about it now, I'm like, and I always had trouble with this because it makes no sense, because what you end up doing is you end up making the relationship so fragile on a man's temper. And a lot of men have tempers. We're human beings. We have, you know, emotions or whatever. We get upset. We say things we don't mean. And then you have so much mental anxiety because you don't know if your marriage is halal anymore. And you don't know whether your wife, you're committing zina, adultery with her, like, which punishment is stoning again, right? Like, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it goes into like just, there's so many loopholes. This one other problem I found with the 4 witness thing you brought up is, firstly, it's if somebody actually, suppose a lady does get raped, she has no way to prove that she got raped if she doesn't have 4 witnesses, right?
Right.
So you can never prove rape because there won't be 4 witnesses, even though if it actually happened.
And not just that, if you accuse someone without evidence, you are the one who gets whipped.
Yeah.
So, and here's another funny thing. I was asking someone, and he didn't want to admit it. Now, check this out. Listen to this, and tell me what you think. If I come, okay, let's say I'm a woman. It doesn't have to be a woman. It could be a man too. Okay, but let's just say a woman, for example's sake. Well, men don't get raped very often, but let's just say it's a woman, okay? So, because women tend to get raped. So a woman comes and said, this happened to me. I was raped by this man over there. And they say, okay, where's your 4 witnesses? And now this is not time of Sahaba where they had curtains for doors and people just, like, the wind blew and you'd see everything happening, right? This is like, you know, we have doors and locks and stuff now, and the life is different, and the 4 witnesses thing is not likely. Now, my question to my Muslim friends, someone mentioned this to me, if I accuse him of rape and I don't prove it, can I be killed for adultery? Like, doesn't that mean I'm liable for the punishment? Because I just admitted against my own self that I had sex outside of marriage because I was raped, right? So, but I can't prove the rape. Does that mean now I'm an adulteress and I have to be stoned to death? You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine a married woman in this situation. She's totally screwed because she's actually bearing witness against herself that she had illegal sexual intercourse. She's saying it's not my fault, but that remains to be seen, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so messed up, right?
Yeah, it actually does happen. It happened in Egypt. It happens in Pakistan. It happens in Muslim countries to this day, where married women, if they get raped and they say that, hey, I got raped by this man, they only have 2 choices. They either get stoned to death because their allegation is taken as self-confession for adultery, or they get whipped because they say it's a false allegation.
But they don't stone people to death in Pakistan.
No, not in Pakistan. But, well, in Afghanistan and some northwestern parts, yes, still.
Okay. But what would happen in Pakistan? Does Pakistan uses some secular law as well?
It's a mixed secular and Islamic laws. There are actually Sharia courts, so it depends. If you go to a Sharia court, you'll get the Islamic punishment, and if you don't, then you get the one prescribed in the criminal code. I'm not sure what the exact punishment is.
Okay.
But just to give you an idea, that in Pakistan, if a woman gets divorced, she is looked down upon, and cannot remarry. And if she makes this allegation that she was raped, they actually end up blaming the girl that, no, it was your fault. You got raped.
Yeah, that's typical misogynistic male-dominated culture, eh?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, on to a light. So, anything else you want to add about Muhammad? I have a tendency to jump in and start going on about other things. I think we got the point, though. But yeah, he definitely did a lot of terrible things.
I just want to like share this one verse of the Quran that like he already did, just to show to people like what Allah thought of non-believers. Is my screen sharing?
Yep. No, it's not screen sharing.
Okay, there you go. So here Allah says that the worst of creation, or the worst of living beings in the eyes of Allah, are the people who don't believe. Like literally Allah is calling non-believers worse than animals.
Right.
And here's the tafsir and exegesis from one of Muhammad's companions who was known to be the most learned in the Quran. And you can see he says, the worst of these created beings in Allah's sight are the ungrateful Banu Qurayza and others who will not believe. That is all the non-believers. And
why does it say Banu Qurayza? That's like so funny. Like, why did they specify, like the guy that made the tafsir decided to specify the Arabic tribe at the time of Muhammad? They're the worst of creatures, these Jews and all of humanity.
And before we finish, I just want to bring up this one incident that is very well documented, and what Muhammad did was horrible. So basically, there was this war where the non-believers of Mecca besieged Medina for about 20-some days, and then Muslims are almost running out of supplies, but at the end there was a storm, and the army of the unbelievers had to leave. And then
Khandak, right?
Yeah, Khandak, Battle of the Trench. And after the battle was done, Muhammad was washing dust off his face and all that. And I'll just pull up the references first, because this incident is very significant and shows what Muhammad was about. We'll start with what Allah says about it. And Allah basically said that He cast terror into their hearts, and then you killed some and you took the others as captives, as slaves. This is just a explanation of it. You can look at it in detail on my Facebook. But here's what it gets interesting. I don't know if you guys can see the text, but
no, you can't see. It's too small. Just read it or something. Yeah.
So basically, what happened was Muhammad was done the war, and then Gabriel comes to Muhammad and says that you have put down your arms, but the army of the angels hasn't. And then Muhammad asks, well, why not? And then they say, oh, we're going to go to this Jewish tribe of Banu Qurayza, who allegedly supported the invading army. So let's go fight them. So Muhammad goes, besieges their fortress for 25-ish days. And in the end, they give up and they surrender. Now, this is one of the narrations where Gabriel comes and says for Muhammad to go to the tribe. When you open the incident in the Sirah books and the Hadith, after the tribe had surrendered, Muhammad took all of their men and dug trenches in the middle of the city of Medina in the markets and beheaded 600 to 800 men. The figure varies, and the criteria for beheading was anyone with pubic hair was beheaded, and if you don't have pubic hair, that is the men, you were taken as a slave. All the women and the young boys were taken as slaves. Anybody with pubes was beheaded. This is from Life of Muhammad, Sirah of Muhammad, written by Ibn Hisham, and he's trying to narrate what Ibn Ishaq said. And you can read, Then they surrendered, and the apostle confined them in Medina in the quarter of Al-Harith, a woman of Banu al-Najr. Then the apostle went out to the market of Medina and dug trenches in it. Then he sent for them and struck off their heads in those trenches as they were brought out to him in batches. Among them was the enemy of Allah, Huway bin Akhtab, that's the father of Safiya, that girl Muhammad married, and Ka'b bin Asad, their chief.
Right.
This is shocking. There were 600 or 700 in all, though some put the figure as high as 800 or 900.
Right.
And it goes on, how Muhammad beheaded them. And then it goes on as to why they were killed.
Yeah.
I just want to show you the narration where it says that the people with the kids with the pubes were killed, and the ones without were spared. There it is.
Like that, yeah.
So this person, Atiyah al-Qurayzi, was one of the children, and he said, I was among the captives of Banu Qurayza. They examined us, and those who had begun to grow hair, as pubic hair, were killed, and those who had not were not killed. I was among those who had not grown hair. Same narration down here, graded as authentic. And this is even worse. Muhammad killing people with swords, and then he had a woman beheaded.
Yeah, she seemed like she had lost. I read this hadith. I was confused about what happened. It seems like she had gone crazy because I think the whole situation was too much for her.
Yeah.
And so she lost her mind, and they just killed her.
They just killed her. And this is a good hadith, a Hasan hadith.
Right. What do you, okay, sorry, go ahead. Finish your explanation.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say was, how can you call this guy a prophet of God when he's literally beheading 600 to 800 or 900 men? And some of them are young boys that just started to grow pubic hair.
Right. Yeah.
It is basically genocide.
Yeah.
And it just shocks me as to how Muslims get their heads around this. And there is no explanation. All they say is, oh, it's a fake incident. It never happened. It never happened. But when you look at the sources, the text is there, and all they are and are in denial of it.
Or they'll say they betrayed him.
Yeah, and they would try to justify it by saying that, oh, the chief of the tribe betrayed, thus we kill all the men and the young boys. How does that work?
Yeah, it definitely is a troubling incident. Yeah. Someone's asking if you have a YouTube channel. No, not yet. I'll post his Facebook link again. You can follow him on Facebook. You have followers enabled, Abdul Hanan?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Okay, so he's not going to accept all of your friend requests necessarily, but you can follow him, and his posts are public. So I do the same thing as well. My posts are mostly public, and I do have some friends-only posts I post sometimes. But anything you want to follow, you can basically just follow. You don't have to. But feel free to send a friend request if you like. And so yeah, this is, the same thing. It's the same thing with me. Like, how can you go back to Islam after all this? Like, it's just, there's no way. Like, when people say you're gonna come back to Islam, and it's like, how? Like, I don't see any possible way ever to believe in this again, because there's just so many holes in this thing. It's like it's like a leaky bucket. Like you patch one hole and there's 5 other holes. There's no way to go back to Islam. And people told me, oh, you're gonna end up, you're gonna convert to Hinduism, or you're gonna end up as this and that. And I'm like, okay, listen. First of all, I didn't have my skepticism back then, and I wasn't critical. And basically, I accepted the religion based on my previous background as an Ismaili Muslim or whatever. The thing is, I'm now, I consider myself more rational now, and I'm more skeptical. I don't fall for these things so easily anymore. So, I'm taking life. My eyes have been opened, and I think once your eyes are opened, you don't tend to fall back into the same things. But like, honestly speaking, the door is not shut. Like, maybe I'll become Muslim again one day. I'm not saying that I'm never going to become Muslim. I just don't see how that's possible ever. But I'm not saying I'm closed-minded. I'm not saying I'm not willing to reconsider. I'm not saying I'm not willing to discuss. Although at this point in time, I don't know if you had the same experience. I've had so many private conversations with people that I'm just tired of it, and I'd rather have like public discussions like what we're doing now, and that way other people can learn and watch and dialogue, you know. So I managed to have a discussion with a Muslim. He's in the chat right now, but he doesn't want to discuss with me again. But I do hope someone else will come and have a discussion with me, and now with you as well. Beach Price was mentioning that you know, she'd like to see you on here again. Maybe when you create a channel, that would be good. We can promote the channel, and we'll definitely continue. And let's just get it finished up because it's been quite long. Couple more things I want to ask. What do you think about? By the way, that was an amazing answer. Thanks for going through the detail. And you had your. You definitely need to make a blog, because you seem like your Facebook is your blog, but like, you know, if you can put it together in like a little bit more organized fashion, it'd be very helpful. What do you think about like alcohol, about bacon, about stuff like that? Have you tried any of these things now that you left Islam?
I eat a lot of pork, pepperoni for life.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I love pepperoni.
It took me a long time.
I haven't tried alcohol yet. It's just because where I work, I get to deal with a lot of intoxicated people, and it just puts me off.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, like, honestly,
it's not healthy either, so
you're not missing anything, like, honestly speaking. It's not like the whole bacon thing for me it took me a long time to like even get the courage to eat it. I just still feel disgusted by it, but now I finally can do it.
Yeah. Well, I started off slowly with the chicken bacon, and then after that I went to proper bacon. So for me, it was a gradual a staircase.
Yeah. So finally, you know, I wanted to end off with like, you know, clearly we are kindred spirits of sorts, and we're both motivated to speak out publicly. And why are you motivated? I mean, it comes out clearly in your voice. You know, it's very clear like how deeply. I'll just, you know, I'll say what I think. I feel like you care about people, you care about Muslims. You don't want anyone else to basically waste their life on a false religion. That's kind of like my background, my motivation. But what is your motivation?
Well, coming from like that strict religious mentality, and then seeing how indoctrination works and how it can cripple a mind and destroy all faculties of critical thinking, I see as a moral obligation to go out, tell these people that, hey guys, listen, wake up. There's people dying because of your ideologies. There's people whose hands are being chopped. There's people being killed because of this. It has real life effects. Hence, we need to talk about this. Otherwise, as I mentioned, that poor student Mashal Khan, or the Ayaz Nazami, the blogger that is facing a death sentence for just merely posting something online about Islam that is critical of the religion. These are basic fundamental human rights that we need to protect. Freedom of speech is the way forward. Again, I don't want the youth to go through what I did, because I know how it's like. I know how you start thinking and how it can destroy someone's life. I don't want people to follow something blind and then commit intellectual suicide trying to justify stoning or chopping somebody's hands off and stuff. I want women to have respect in society. I want this misogyny to end. I want women to be leaders. I want society, the world, to be a better place. And I don't see that Islam is going to create that.
Absolutely. And, you know, for you, you know, personally, it came with a big personal cost. You can, you know, no longer go to your home country, country of birth, your home country. Your relationship with your parents is difficult and awkward. You know, being not just leaving Islam, but being public about it, you know. Yeah, Beach Price is saying intellectual suicide. Yeah, I loved how you said that. That was a good way to put it. But yeah, definitely, you know, it came with a huge price, you know, doing what you do, and you do it and I do it because we care about people and we want to help people, and we just don't want other people to go through the same thing. And we just, we went through the same thing, right? And I do get comments from people like probably like once a month, or thank you so much, you really helped me. I myself personally left Islam because for me, it started with something on Facebook, and that kind of triggered my curiosity to look into it and to research. So for me, I do see that this helps, that what you're doing is definitely helpful. And each and every single person that comes out publicly, it makes it that much easier for other people to do so. And eventually, honestly, I think our job will be done and we can stop talking about Islam. We'll talk about something else, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, like I don't care about Islam. I'm just gonna keep talking about it forever and ever. I think at this point in time, we do need to talk about it. It's just that people don't know you can live Islam. People don't realize that this is something you can do and live to tell the tale, right? So we need to do it. I definitely appreciate that you're doing this, and the huge personal sacrifices you made. And I encourage everyone, if you're watching this video, do share it with others. I think this was fantastic discussion, and we did try to answer questions. We'll have him on here again in the future. Anything else you want to add? I posted your Facebook link. I'll post it in the description as well. Anything else you want to add?
I would just say to people that listen, start thinking critically. If you're a Muslim that's having doubts, you're not alone. I was way worse. I've done really weird things in the name of religion. Open your eyes, make this world a better place. Islam is not the way to go. You have to give people their due rights. Humanity is above all. That's my message. My profile, Facebook, has a lot of detailed posts with all the references. They're available. I started posting around May 20th. And if you want to go that far back, it was May 20th this year. You can see all my posts. I even point out things that are not easily accessible to people, like criticism of the manuscripts of the Quran and the variants in there. And I talk about all these issues. I want you guys to start talking as well, to talk out publicly. It needs to be done because people are dying because of a few Muslims getting offended.
Definitely. Okay, guys, thanks to everyone. Have a good night or a good day, depending on what time it is, and see you again at the next one. Bye.
Good night, people.